Hello everyone, and welcome back to Player One Start. In this video, we're going to continue my look at 2021 in gaming. In this series, I'm taking a look at the games that I personally played just for fun and enjoyment throughout the year of 2021, and thanks to a longtime viewer on the channel, I was able to secure an Xbox Series X, and this machine has been taking up a lot of my time in terms of personal gaming. One thing you may notice, though, is that I don't own a single Xbox Series X game in my collection, at least not physically. There are a couple reasons for this, but the first is that I have been very skeptical about Microsoft having physical media because they have been a long-time advocate for an all-digital gaming future. And I've heard from forums and other gamers online that basically the disc is a key to a digital title and nothing more, with most, if not all, games requiring something online before they will actually boot, at least in Xbox Series X mode. It's also very confusing if you're actually getting an Xbox One version or an Xbox Series version on disc anyway. So even though I don't have a lot of interest in physical media on the Xbox Series X, I have been using it for Xbox backwards compatibility, and most of my modern gaming experiences have been on Game Pass. Since I activated my Game Pass subscription in June, I have found a plethora of titles to keep my time and attention, and I'm going to go through a few of those here in this video. Let's go ahead and dive into the one that I actually just beat over the holiday season, and that is Serious Sam 4. In preparation of being able to play Serious Sam 4, I did go back and play through the Serious Sam collection, which includes the first and second encounter, and Serious Sam 3 before the first encounter. And if you've never played any game in this series before, be prepared to be amazed. This game series has very good first-person shooting controls, creative weapons, all with a kind of hell and demon aesthetic, but what really puts this game series at the top for me is the humor. Serious Sam plays the 80s movie action hero one-liners a bit too far in some cases, but it's what keeps me entertained and wanting to go through each level. In fact, I think the story is the only thing this game does not take seriously, almost offering a parody of first-person shooters rather than being a legitimately good first-person shooter. From the opening level of battling literally thousands of enemies at once, you are sucked into the game, and it will be a while before you tire of it. There's nothing really groundbreaking. In fact, I would say that this is a typical first-person shooter. Like I said, the only thing that drags me into it is the concept of Serious Sam as the hero, and all of the humorous one-liners being thrown back and forth between all of its characters. Of course, this game is filled with over-the-top blood and gore, but that's also meant to be part of the dark humor presented in this game. It definitely earns its mature rating, and yes, unfortunately they also decided to throw in a bunch of language, but that could also be attributed to how humorous they intended this game to be as a parody of other first-person shooters that throw in bad language just to get that mature rating. Out of all the first-person shooters that I've played in the last 5 years, this one definitely tops it as close to, if not being my favorite first-person shooter in the modern era. Longtime fans of this series will not be disappointed with this entry, although for some strange reason it ran a little unstable on my Xbox Series X. I was plagued with constant texture pop-ins, and there were several game crashes that actually became a bit infuriating before the end of my gameplay, but I was able to get through it okay, and there was nothing really game-breaking about any of the bugs. I imagine this will only get better as the game gets patched as you go along, so maybe you won't have any issue with your playthrough. Playing it just prior to and after Christmas, the beginning of the game had a huge makeover for Christmas, and I found it to be a great addition to the game that really got me sucked into it even more so as a Christmas title, and if you've already played through it, this could have been a nice addition to suck you back in. It was only the first level that got the entire makeover. The rest of the game just had presents knocked around where you can get this new enemy of skeletons with candy canes coming at you, but the rest of the game remains virtually the same. Overall, fans of first-person shooters should definitely play this title, but if you're not a first-person shooter fan, I don't think this game's going to win you over, except for the fact that it is very creatively funny, and despite what the title would suggest, it does not take itself too seriously.
Sir, I still don't have a gun, so please hurry up.
Halo Infinite, on the other hand, is another good first-person shooter on this platform, and one that has been anticipated for at least the last year. After delays and setbacks, and getting the multiplayer released early so people could try it out before the single-player campaign would be released, at long last we can find out what happened after the events of Halo 5 Guardians. From the get-go, you'll notice that not really much has changed. There are a few new abilities, such as the grapple shot and thruster, which allows you to pull yourself towards foes or retrieve items from a distance. But the big difference in this single-player mode is that it's supposed to feature a semi-open world structure, and most of my playthrough, at least that I've captured, was focused on the first couple of levels, which does offer traditional gameplay style, which, to tell you the truth, it is Halo, and it's Halo I haven't played before, so, I mean, that's a good thing. But once I got to the first, semi-open world area, I almost immediately lost interest, and that's actually where I went back and started playing through Serious Sam 4. I beat Serious Sam 4, and then I came back and I was more okay with Halo. It seems very clear to me that the main focus of Halo is to get it into a massive multiplayer game, and sadly I think that the single-player mode is actually more geared towards that same philosophy. As when you get to that open world area, if you're playing it by yourself, I found it to be just tedious and repetitive. But if I was playing in co-op with another person online, that made the game infinitely better, pardon the pun. Overall, I do like Halo Infinite, and I do look forward to playing more of it, but it's not a game that I really found myself wanting to sit down and play through in one sitting. But I think that's because I've always been just a casual fan of Halo, and I've really had more enjoyable experiences playing Halo in co-op than I have in single-player. Unfortunately, I was also turned away from the multiplayer mode very quickly because it was discovered that people are using bot assist aiming, and it really didn't leave me with a good first impression. Now, they have addressed this by allowing the player on Xbox consoles to only play against other console players, so they have been making steps to improve it, which I imagine will only get better over time with multiple seasons to be released. Overall, I will say that it is Halo, I have been having a fun time playing it, and, of course, if you have an Xbox, this is the game to have for it.
Good shot! Now die! Right away!
In preparation for Halo 5's release, I actually started going back and playing through the Master Chief Collection, which I do have a physical copy for, but I did download and just play through Game Pass because it's more convenient than popping the disc in. But I was only able to get through Halo 1 and Halo 5 before Halo Infinite came out. I've never played Halo 2 or 4 to this day, so I will have to go back and give those a try. The first game that I played that was optimized for the Xbox Series X and S was Forza Horizon 4. This was also my introduction to the series, as I had never played a Forza game before this, and I wasn't really quite sure what to expect. Most of the people who I know who are really into Xbox described it to me as the Gran Turismo of the Xbox, so I was really expecting it to be more of a racing simulator, but it is definitely not, at least in the terms that I played it. I think most of the fun I had in this game was just driving between different events, and just plowing through all the off-road obstacles I could possibly want to. I did like the open world aspect where basically you can go from point to point without any load times in between them, and I never really got tired of it when I was playing this game. I thought it would actually become cumbersome if I had to spend 5-10 minutes driving between events, but allowing any car to off-road and plow through any obstacle, tree, field, whatever, I think made that endlessly entertaining to me. And of course, I had to try out Forza Horizon 5 when it came out, and I was hooked all over again. For the most part, it plays like Forza Horizon 4, but they do change the location into Mexico, where it kind of plays through what I would call a greatest hits reel of Mexico, where you go through all of Mexico's different environments, featuring a live and active volcano, driving through a hurricane or a sandstorm. Overall, it's just really fun, and if you only had one racing game for the Xbox, I would definitely recommend Forza Horizon 4 or 5, and I don't think you'd be disappointed. To be honest though, I didn't really see too much of a difference in terms of graphics or ray tracing between playing the two titles. I mean, yeah, you can tell Forza Horizon 5 is a bit more sharp and maybe has a few more reflections off of the cars, but I ended up playing these in graphics mode and the frame rate definitely seemed to fit it. I didn't really feel like it ever stuttered too much, and it was very consistent all throughout. Definitely a good time all around.
Turn around when it is safe to do so.
Another game that took a lot of my time, but for different reasons, was Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've seen other Xbox gamers all over the map with this one. A lot of them seem to like and praise the visuals, but I have seen a significant amount of criticism towards the gameplay. And I think the critique that I most agree with is that really it's just an open world flight sim game, and you can just do whatever you want into it. You don't really have to follow many of the missions unless you want to progress through the game. I spent most of my time in this game just flying around, checking out the environments, and really just trying to master the flight controls while admiring the stunning scenery. Like most simulation and strategy games, the pace of this game is a lot more relaxing and slow, and I think that's really intentional. So while I agree this game is not for everyone, if you are a fan of the Microsoft Flight Simulator series, this one's gotta be one of the best I've ever played. Another game I ended up playing through on this console, which has been out for a while, was Streets of Rage 4. Being a huge fan of the Streets of Rage series of the past, I was very much looking forward to playing this game, but for one reason or another just never got around to it until I had it on the Xbox and Game Pass. I did eventually show my entire playthrough of this game on stream, so if you want to see that, you can go through and view my previous live streams on my channel page. Overall, I thought this game was very well done. You can definitely tell that they spent a lot of time and care trying to appease fans of the past while trying to appeal to a new generation. The issue I have with this game is just its timing. I think people would have loved to have seen Streets of Rage 4 come out at least a decade ago. And after having almost 15 years of hype build-up behind it, I don't think any game could have lived up to the hype, but this game definitely gave it a solid effort, and I really did end up enjoying it. And speaking of retro titles, one that I was completely caught off guard by, this game reminds me of a lot of games I played back in the day that are kind of action platforming adventure games with elements of role-playing added into it. Of course, the pixelized aesthetic also fits into that 16-bit era of gaming, but it is an aesthetic choice only, and it's not really designed to be played as a 16-bit title. This game is not exclusive to the Xbox, but it is on Game Pass, and that's the reason why I got it. I don't think I ever would have given this game a second look had I not had free access to it. But I am very glad that I gave this game a shot, and I would recommend it to those that like this retro style of gameplay that you just don't see in modern gaming. One of the advantages of having the Series X allows me to put in a physical disc from almost 20 years ago, and I can play them fully upscaled and sometimes even remastered on my modern machine. Another older game that I decided to play on the Xbox Series X because they upscale it very well and it plays on a modern system is the original Star Wars Battlefront and the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. These games really defined my gaming experiences from 2005 to 2006. Although I initially played them on a PlayStation 2, I did play them on Xbox a few times too because they were able to play them online and network them so easily. I spent many a LAN party back in the day playing these games, and playing it on the modern system has been fun as well for me and my friends that decided to come in and revisit these classic titles. I still enjoy these classic titles more than I enjoy the reboot series, which hopefully they're able to make up for in the near future. The first one off of Game Pass that I really found myself getting back into was Final Fantasy XIII. I initially played this on the PlayStation 3 back almost a decade ago, and I really haven't been back to it. I think a lot of people were very critical of this game at the time as they were expecting Final Fantasy XIII to be mostly open world. And I do remember seeing a lot of hate against this game because it followed a linear gameplay style for the most part. But for me personally, that did not bother me one bit through this game. In fact, what I really found engaging was the paradigm battle system. I really like trying to figure out which paradigms you should use and shift into so that you can efficiently take down any enemy that you encounter. I did find the story to be not up to par of the Final Fantasy standard of the games that preceded it, but again, I would put the gameplay as the first and foremost strength of this game. If you have Game Pass and you're a fan of Final Fantasy or just role-playing games in general, I would definitely give this one a look. As Psychonauts 2 was scheduled to be released this year, I decided to go back and play through the first Psychonauts, and again, I was kind of astounded at how good this game really is. What really sets this game apart from other action platformers of the era is the game's unique story, characters, and setting. It's kind of surprising to me that this game was only released on Xbox, as it really feels like I'm playing through an old action platformer of the 2001 days of Nintendo. I haven't quite gotten through this game all the way, so I haven't tried out the second one yet, but I could definitely tell you that this game is worth a shot. But I would recommend this game first to those that grew up in the early 2000s, because I think this is going to appeal to you a lot more. If you want the more modern experience, definitely start out with Psychonauts 2.
Relax, that's just a figment of my imagination. You can run right through figments. They help you rank up, and when you rank up, you earn new psychic powers.
And speaking of action platformers from the 90s, you can definitely check out Rare Replay, which is the reason why I wanted an Xbox One for so long, because I really wanted to see all of these Nintendo platformers upscaled and perhaps made a little bit better. I didn't actually own an N64 back in the day, so I'm not as nostalgic for some of these titles as others may be, but I could definitely recommend going through and playing Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and many of the other titles included in Rare Replay, and I think this is one of the best additions they could have made to Game Pass. And of course I had to get my retro fill of playing the original Doom on the Xbox as well. I am more nostalgic personally for Doom 2, as that is the first one I played and the one I owned for many years. But the original will always be the classic iconic title that many people remember as their first experience playing Doom. I was actually kind of surprised at how well the graphics look on here. I mean, I wasn't expecting true-to-life HD visuals with ray tracing and all that. But I think this graphical style aged a bit more gracefully than I was expecting, and I think that's partially due to the fact that titles like Minecraft have really made this heavily pixelized textures in a 3D environment a bit more acceptable to modern gamers, as it almost seems like it's an art style choice, rather than the fact that this game is almost 30 years old. Still, for those of you thinking this is what Doom looked like back in the day, you will be sorely mistaken. There's no way they could have upscaled it to this resolution that it's running on the Xbox Series X hardware without redeveloping it or emulating it somehow. But I think in terms of a first-person shooter gameplay, for a quick run-through, this is not too bad. And if you haven't played the original Doom before, I'm not going to say that it's a must-have that everybody has to play in their lifetime, but those of you that grew up with it will be satisfied. And for those of you who are curious about how first-person shooters got their start, this is a good way to see it. It always makes me happy to see modern consoles keep these retro titles alive rather than bury them. Dirt 5 was a title that I was tempted to overlook because of the fun I was having with the Forza Horizon series, but I'm very glad I gave this a second look. This game has been described as a simcade racing video game, and what that means is that it has elements of simulation, but it has a user-friendliness to its controls that doesn't leave the casual audience stranded. This game is one of, if not the last title released by Codemasters before their acquisition by EA. The focus in this game is off-road racing, so unlike the variety you get in Forza Horizon, the gameplay here is a bit more limited in that respect. You basically play through rallycross, ice racing, stadium super trucks, and just off-road buggies. And also unlike in Forza Horizon 5, this game takes place in multiple countries around the world. Again, I am a fan of racing simulation games, but I'm also a fan of arcade racing games, and this game just really struck a balance for me that made me want to keep coming back to it, maybe as a break to some of the other games I was playing, but it's nice that I can just jump into this game, play it for a little bit, leave, come back a week later, and it doesn't really feel like I've lost my skill to the point where I have to relearn all the controls to play it again. I did initially play this game on the PlayStation 5, but since it came free with Game Pass, I also downloaded it on the Series X. For me, I can't tell you how much it compares between the two consoles, other than to say, to me it looks almost identical. The career mode was fun to go through, but I think I found myself enjoying the multiplayer a bit more in this one. Well, there you have it. Those are the main games that took up a lot of my time in 2021 on the Xbox Series X. Of course, I gotta ask, which ones have you guys played that were also on my list, and which ones did I miss that I should definitely pick up, especially if it's on Game Pass? In the next and final part of this series, where I'm going through my year in gaming in 2021, I will showcase what I've been playing on the PlayStation 5. So stay tuned for that video coming out to you real soon. If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. A special thanks to those Patreons you see on screen. Also, if you like what you see, please remember to leave a like and click that subscribe button on your way out. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.